Hello and welcome to this Edexcel GCSE Geography Walking Talking Mock on resources, and this is the second part, helping to improve your confidence in reading and answering exam questions so you can do the best possible that you can. As always, what's really important, pause the video now so you can see how best to use it and make the most of your time spent doing this walking talking mock. So we're carrying on then from question 4 on resources management. So the question is, explain one reason why non-renewable energy resources need to be managed. Now this is very important to read this carefully. Obviously the command word is explain, so giving reasons and using connectives such as this means that, this leads to, so, which, that, etc. But you're only given one reason. You don't want to be giving multiple reasons. You will only be credited for one reason, and it's how you extend that using your connectives. So you've got to be saying, well, this means that, this leads to, this is because. All right, and you're trying to do that just for one point. We've got to focus on non-renewable energy. So we're looking at the fossil fuels. And why do we need to manage these? Now, to manage these means to how we restrict our use of them, and we want to be looking at things such as why they don't run out, possibly, but also it could be about the environmental problems that could be caused by them. So you'd have to say, we need to manage them because of this, this then leads to, and this means that. So we need to make sure we've got those connectives. It's 4 minutes. For the 4 marks, so have a go at that now. So you've had a go at that 4 marker, and it is award 1 mark for each point about the energy source and a further mark for its explanation of its effects. So we could see some examples here. It may be that they are run out, which means that there won't be enough of them, so we need to use recycled, reusable energy, so we've got things left for the future. Or it could be linking to the fact that they give off carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, causes global warming, which could lead to climate change. So you can see we're just extending our answers, but look at the command words, the connectives, sorry, which, so, which, and, which really shows you're developing your answers there. So we come on to the final question, part of question 4, and this is it's the 8 marker, but also has 4 marks giving for spelling, punctuation and use of specialist terminology. Now it's very important to remember is that these are not point marked as we saw before. Yeah, these are what we call level marked, and it's important you recognize that so you can put that into your answer. And what you need to do to get the higher levels here is demonstrate an understanding of the different concepts and relationships in geography. So this is really seeing your knowledge, your understanding. Are you relating your information to the key terms in the question? It's then starting to put connections in place and giving a balanced argument. So looking at a number of different points in detail, that you are making judgments based on the command word, whether that's assess or evaluate. And where possible, you are trying to give evidence throughout. Now, this isn't always possible, and the evidence doesn't have to be case studies, but it does need to be examples. So you're trying to give more information in your answer. So we know that how it's going to be marked. So assess the impacts on people of developing non-renewable and renewable energy resources. The command word is assess, and we'll have a look at that in a moment, but this is basically how important, which are the most important impacts on people. So we're not looking at environmental impacts, we've got to link it to the impacts on people. And we've got to look at developing or using both non-renewable and renewable energy resources. So let's break this down in a bit more detail. So assess means measure the importance of different factors, and you've got to say which is most important. and if possible say why some are more important than others. Now, structure is so important in these. It's important that you have a short introduction which just introduces the meaning of some of the key terms in the question, and then you want clear paragraphs to show your different points. And then you want a brief conclusion at the end to actually address the command word. So you're summarizing the answer and you're saying the most important factors are, or the most important impacts are. It's also advisable that when you're writing these paragraphs is you leave a line or two between each paragraph. This shows that you've got a clear structure, but also gives you some space if you want to return back to the question later to add a bit more information. So if we look at this question, it's talking about the impacts on people. These are the social impacts. Now, as always, there's more than one possible structure for this. It's not as easy as just saying do your PL or Peter or PETA or whichever technique it is. It really depends on the question. And the questions can sometimes give you a bit of a clue as to what you could do. Now, on this one, because it's asking for renewable and non-renewable resources, it may be that you want to do your introduction, then a paragraph on the good and bad points of non-renewable energy, or the good and bad points, the impacts on people. You might want to then do another paragraph looking at the good points and bad impacts on people of renewable energy types. And then in the conclusion, just state which one has the most important impacts on people. So, for example, you might say that non-renewable energy is cheap and reliable. And this is important because it helps to improve the quality of life. However, it can lead to local air pollution and global climate change. And this could lead to a massive reduction of quality of life in the longer term. So in assessing, we're also looking at terms such as local or global impacts, which would suggest how important they are, and also shorter term and longer term impacts, which again is another form of assessment. For renewable, it may be supplying new jobs, which could mean more money, but in the short term they might be less reliable and more expensive, and they could take up farmland and ruin landscapes. So, for example, some people can get quite stressed out by seeing the wind turbines if they're nearby to them. So that is another way of assessing them. Rather than just saying this is the most important, you're implicitly assessing them by looking at the good points and bad points and how wide-ranging those impacts are. As we return to the question then, so assess. So the important ones, how are they important locally, globally, short term, long term? What are the impacts on people of developing both non-renewable and renewable energy types? So again, remember it's an 8-marker. You need an introduction, 2 or 3 main paragraphs and a short conclusion just to answer the question directly on there. And it's also important to remember your spelling, punctuation and use of specialist geographical terminology. All of the work we do on those key terms, and it's also worth remembering that your examples or your evidence would be giving evidence of these different types of energy. So you might be talking about oil, petrol and diesel for the fossil fuels, or it could be coal. For renewable energy, you want to be talking about wind power, solar energy, and really start to use those as part of your answer to develop that evidence to it. So it's 8 marks plus 4, so I have about 10 minutes. Have a go now. As we have a look at the mark scheme, remember you do not need to include all of the information here, but you do need to include, as I say, 3 or 4 key points within your paragraphs. And this isn't how you would lay out the answer necessarily, but AO2, Assessment Objective 2, is your understanding. What do you know about the negative and positive impacts of different types of fuels? So you can see here, we're talking about the development of wind farms, which might spoil the scenery, development of non-renewables might lead to global warming, etc. AO3, Assessment Objective 3, is about your judgments and your assessments of them. So looking at how wide-ranging, the short term, the longer term, and the most important aspects of it. So have you been able to do that within your answer? So again, you can use this video, you can pause it, have a look at some of the comments that have been made in the mark scheme, and then have a go at seeing how well you think you've done. So you can pause this now and you can have a look at the different elements. Finally, we're just going to look at the spelling and punctuation and grammar marks, and you can see here that really we should be aiming for the 3 to 4 marks where we're using spellings and punctuation correctly, that your sentences make sense with good paragraphs, and you are using the specialist terms correctly. Really important to show that you're a geographer by using the correct geographical terminology. So that's resources question complete for you. I hope you found that useful. Thank you very much for watching. See you again soon. Bye.